Hey, what is up, guys? My name is Emiliano, and today we're going to be drawing Daredevil. This piece was a piece that I did just the other day. I wanted to kind of take you through the process of what it's like when I'm drawing. So this is going to be kind of like a commentary slash voiceover of me doing the work. The work is going to be sped up because I don't want you guys to have to sit through an hour and a half of me babbling for no reason. The process is kind of simple. I'm a self-taught artist, a lot of just reference, and I'm trying to get better at being original and coming up with my own ideas and whatnot. So yeah, I just kind of put pen to paper. There's nothing else really to it, and I hope for the best. So hopefully you guys like this piece. But yeah, this is what we're going to be drawing today. This was on a Daredevil #1 blank cover. This issue just came out, and yeah, I actually just read it the other night before I started drawing on it. It was a good issue, and hopefully I could do a little review for you guys and let you know my real thoughts about the book and the issue. Alright, so let's get to it, and let's start drawing. Alright guys, so here we are starting off with kind of my basic process, what I normally do with all my drawings. I typically try to start with the grid lines and getting my shapes down for the basic figure slash anatomy. And even with simple portraits like this one, I like to do it and just play it safe, just so I know that I'm not gonna have like a wonky figure or something and it's gonna come out looking kind of goofy. Right here, I'm just kind of placing down my eye placement, not really setting in any too major details. I use this red drafting pencil that really lets me keep it loose and light, but I can go heavy with it when needed. It's really nice. I definitely recommend for any artists out there. So I've been drawing for a little over 10 years seriously, since I've been in like my senior year of high school. That's when I kind of decided in my life that, this is what I want to do with my life and, kind of pursue it as a career. And I'm really grateful for the opportunities that have come along with it. But as you can see here, there's even in this process and this stage, there's a lot of erasing, there's a lot of second guessing myself at this point. I'm trying to become better at it and kind of trust the process, which you'll see coming up here soon, and just kind of letting loose. I could tell at this point I was kind of getting frustrated and not liking the way the facial features were coming out, not liking the way I was placing things. I think for any artist, any true artist, your biggest critic is always going to be yourself. And that's, I think right here, you can, with all the erasing, you can kind of tell that's going on. That is definitely what's racing through my mind, trying to get this piece done, trying to be quote unquote camera ready and get this thing done for you guys, and trying to work at a good pace. But it just was not happening at this point. So I'm starting to darken the features that I like on the piece so far, and again, I'm trying to keep it loose, trying to keep it playful, because it's important at this point, especially, as an artist, to keep it loose with, the real early stages of a piece and not go too deep and overthink the piece itself, because sometimes that could be a detriment to to the artist, and that was definitely starting to happen. So I decided at this point, you know what, I'm going to start darkening in some details, going a little bit heavier with the pencil, and just kind of trust the process. I try to remind myself of that every time, but it does get to one of those situations where you got to practice what you preach, right? And you got to kind of just trust the process and hope for the best for what's to come out and work with what you got. So that's kind of what's going on at this point. As you can see, I'll start going into leaving the head alone and just putting in some other little details, cross-hatching, things like that, shading, where my shadows are going to hit. And right here I'm working on the neck. You'll see me going to the shoulder and the chest in a little bit. Again, I'm trying my best not to be so hard on myself, I guess is the right word to say at this point in the process. So at this point, I'm pulling out my pens and markers, and I'm just kind of trusting the process, going over it with the inks, starting off the inks. And I don't typically like to lock in final details, especially the eye placement with this, but I was not feeling very confident at this point with the piece. But then I brought out that big brush pen, and I just kind of started going to town on the piece and really laying heavy into the shadows. I do enjoy more of the shadowy look on my figures when I'm drawing, especially with like comic book characters and all that. I find them like so stoic and heroic. It just always gives those heroes a really cool look. So yeah, again, just keeping it loose right here and just trying to really go at it with the pen. I'm liking where this is going, so I start bringing out the finer microns and just kind of adding in those details on the piece that I laid down earlier with, the early sketches. And yeah, you'll see me even going on the like devil horns and stuff. I'm just really enjoying it at this point. I'm laying down the inks, and this is typically where the most enjoyment for me comes in with the piece. I don't know. Sometimes my pencils I feel are a little stronger than my inks, but when you get that marker in hand and you see the piece kind of breathe new life, it really is exciting and reinvigorating when you're sitting there looking at the same piece for hours on end. This one only took about an hour and a half, but still, you critique your work so harshly as an artist, you just kind of wish you could get a do-over, but at this point, it's too little too late, and I'm just going for it. Alright, so now I'm going to break out my markers and just start coloring the piece. I really wanted to give this one some nice reds, and because it is Daredevil, I wanted to I didn't want to leave it black and white. I thought it deserved some color on a comic cover, and I actually enjoy coloring my pieces. I don't get to do it too often, but when I do, it really is a lot of fun. I especially know I need to work more on my shading, my detailing, like just as an overall artist, like I know there's always room for improvement, and I can always, critique it and see it when looking from afar, especially right now. So these markers specifically are Master Touch acrylic markers. You can pick these up at like Michael's or, Hobby Lobby. I think Michael's sells them. I'm not sure. I don't go to Michael's all that much. I prefer Hobby Lobby over Michael's. But yeah, these are great markers. They aren't like alcohol markers where they bleed through the paper all that much. But they are more like a paint-based marker. So you do want to use like a thicker paper. I don't recommend using these on like sketchbooks or maybe not like thin sketchbook papers. You want to use something like, really kind of a thicker paper, like a cardstock or, even like I said, Bristol, maybe the mixed medium paper, something like that where these aren't going to distort your paper all that much. Now this is a comic book cover, so typically these are like the thinnest type of paper you could use these on, but actually this comic in particular was, the cover anyway was printed on this like more cardstock paper, so it was a thicker cover, which was nice to work with. I know a lot of people typically with comic covers like to use the Posca paint markers. I have not tried it. I don't know the effects of if it will bleed through or something like that. I will eventually try it, maybe on a comic I don't care about all that much, because I do have a few blank covers that I plan on drawing on. So maybe I'll try them on those, but for this one I wanted to play it safe and I went with the acrylic markers. I know a lot of people use them for the signatures and stuff because the Posca markers, that paint marker really pops with those signatures, and they are nice. I'm just not sure how they would do with such heavy coloring like this piece has with all the reds. Now I'm going to take a gray acrylic marker right here, and I'm just going to start adding in some shadows. This really helps with like the depth of your figure and kind of just giving those extra details, really bringing the piece alive. Something I wanted to go over with right here. You can see me going back over the details with the Micron pen. This is important because once you draw or color over your initial inks, they are going to fade out, right? You can start by doing the colors before the inks, but I like to go over it, and I typically go over it anyway when it's just black and white. So it ends up getting the double, it ends up getting double the love anyway, so I just go back over it and really make sure that those inks pop. Also, something I want to hit on in terms of like quick character sketches and portraits like this, you can see right here down where I'm starting to color in like the shoulder and doing a little bit of the details on, the chest and all that with the black Micron pen. I'm keeping it real loose at this point. I already feel like I have a good idea of where this piece is at and where it's going to end. So, I try to keep it loose at this point. Details to me at this point, like I can be as accurate as I want, or it could be as loose as I want. At this point in this specific drawing, I was just keeping it loose. This is my rendition of Daredevil. It is more based towards, the show, which was what I was going for, especially because the new season just came out and I couldn't wait to read this book, and I couldn't wait to pick up, Daredevil again. That's really where this is all coming in, and also again, I'm just using a lot of reference. So yeah, I'm really trying to keep it loose at this point, and I encourage anyone else who's doing it to do the same. This is a point as an artist that I'm just trying to get a lot better at. And what I'm trying here is to just kind of give not only a background for my character and add more detail, but I'm trying to get better at like city landscapes and things like that, and just perspective drawing. I'm keeping it real simple with this one because I don't want to ruin the piece. I had liked where it was already at with just the character sketch, but I really felt like it needed something. And what better thing than that than of, a city background for the devil of Hell's Kitchen. So, New York is kind of the inspiration. I'm keeping it, again, real loose with the inspiration here. A lot of references of city silhouettes. I'm not trying to do anything too crazy right here. But again, it is something that I want to continue to pursue and get better at. Now I'm about wrapping up this piece, and it was a lot of fun. It's always a lot of fun to color and sketch and draw on a comic book cover. It's something that I've always wanted to do in my life, was to be in comics in some kind of form or way, especially on the art side of it. I just enjoy comic books. I enjoy comic book movies, video games, all of that stuff. It's a big inspiration in my life. I've always been heavily interested in it, and it's what like I said, I try to pursue in life with my art. It's what I'm very passionate about. Right here, I'm just wrapping it up, giving, some nice little details and highlights, and just, laying down the old signature. I hope you guys enjoyed, and thanks for listening to me ramble.